I have been talking to my friend Nikki from Dots, and we talked about beads, and she said that she wasn't that familiar with beads, and I was saying how I use it a lot in my stuff. So I thought I would do a quick video just to talk about the the theory of beads, the nature of beads. Um, I'm not a black belt in beads. I'm not a master of beads, but I'm okay. I can do some damage, and I appreciate it's a bit of a weird module. I see a lot of posts actually by people saying that they don't quite get it, and I'm going to talk about a couple of ways to use it. I'm not going to go through the whole list of features. There's going to be things in there that I'm just going to not touch at all. Wave tables, for example, we can park all of that stuff. But there's some things that I can hopefully share that gets you up and running quite quickly. Weirdly, as well, maybe this isn't going to be a live sort of video demo. This is just going to be me talking about the theory of beads. And then after, I will probably do a couple of videos just to sort of demonstrate with actual music how it all works. But I just wanted to talk about beads. Right, so we have beads here. First thing we could probably talk about and scratch off the list are the ins and outs. Pretty straightforward. So you've got your stereo in, you've got your stereo out. So for your set or for your patch, let's just assume you've got two coming in, two going out. Nice and easy. We are not going to worry about freeze today, and we're not going to worry about this one here. What we are going to quickly mention is seed. The seed is something I use a lot and is basically a clock. So you get a clock in here, and the clock helps you manage your beads. It gives everything rhythm, and yeah, absolutely, you can use this without rhythm and go completely West Coast crazy. But in my usage, I tend to clock it. So you clock it here, and you can, let's say you've got a 120 BPM track playing, and you take a copy out of Pam's of that clock, and you plug it into seeds, into the seed patch bay port or whatever. That's going to give you control in the density. So you could do like a faithful 1-to-1. You could do a 2-to-1. So you could put in twice the speed of your clock. So if your clock is at the base is 120, put it to times 2, and then you get a bit more action happening with the density. So let's talk about the density for a second. So this manages the frequency of your beads, how often they appear in your music, and you can think of it in two halves. So on this side here, you have regular beads, and on this side here, you have irregular beads, random beads. And if your dial is up here, then it's going to be rhythmic but occasional. So if it's on a 120 coming into your seed, it's going to be like boom, 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 like that. And if it's down here, it's going to be more boom, 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 quicker. So the slowness or the quickness is affected by how quickly your clock is coming in, which is why I tend to double it up. I tend to put times 2 of my base clock in here, because that just gives me a bit more headroom in terms of how much action I want to create in my beads. And then, of course, on this side here, you've got random. So this will be the occasional blip, and down here will pretty much be the same as this. It's it's just so random, it's always happening. Random probability of 100% is the same as, you know, very frequent on the regular side. The normal side, random side. Um, yeah, so generally speaking, if you put your dial to about here, that gives you, for me, quite interesting, random but relatively frequent grains. So that is all I want to say about density for now. In terms of the seed, I'm not going to talk about what it is. I'm just going to say make it green. Keep the seed green and everything will be okay and will make sense for this little theory talk. Right, let's talk about shape. So this sculpts your grains. This will make it sound backwards. This will make it sound soft and ease in and out. This is pretty glitchy, and this one is the one I tend to use most. It's like the blip 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 blip. The one that you choose will depend on the type of music you're making, but for this example, we're just using the ramp down. And of course, I think this is the shape. We're not going to worry about this or this or this. We might talk about this. So let's just quickly recap. You've got a seed coming in. You have set your random grain density to frequent, but not too frequent. Seed is green, freezes off. Right, size. So this is effectively how long each of these triggered grains will run for. Down here is backward territory, and this is very, very quick. This is longer sections, and this is delay town. And we're not going to go here. We're going to keep it roughly here. So by keeping your density quite random and keeping the size of your grains quite small, you're going to get a particular type of effect, which is like almost rhythmic, but still quite random, little blips of grains. And the grains are snippets of the audio that's coming in. Okay, let's talk about this for a second. This is quite easy. This is just your reverb. So how big of space do you want your sound to be? Obviously, you can modulate that, but generally speaking, you're going to probably want to start off and just keep it somewhere in the middle, maybe somewhere here. It sounds great. Further down here you go, but it does get very washy. So you don't really, unless that's the effect you're going for, you do lose a lot of clarity when you go too far to the right. So I tend to sort of keep it in this range here. We're not going to talk about this, so just forget it. This button here is to determine which of these three things this CV will modulate. So you've got, let's say you've got random coming in here, some sort of random CV wave thing. You press this 3 times. Well, let's say the default is this, which is the feedback, which I don't fully understand, to be honest. So I'm just going to ignore it. You press this button, it will go over to the mix of the grains, which we'll talk about in a second. This is a really important one, this one. And if you press this button again, then this will be the thing that is modulated, the reverb. So you can have this affect three things, I believe, but generally speaking, I will just pick one and I'll have something come into here to modulate either this one or this one or this one. Usually this is the one that you want to modulate. Let's talk about this one. So if this dial is all the way down here, you won't hear any grains. This is the mix of the grains. If your dial is down here, you will only hear the grains that are generated from the frequency, the size, and the shape. If it's here in the middle, then you'll get a combination of your core sound coming in and your core sound and the grains going out. It's dry wet, basically, for the effect. So just keeping that in mind, if you set this all the way down to the bottom, so your bass knob setting is 0 mix, and then if you press this button here so that the cloud is the thing that's being modulated, then if you send in some CV into here, this will invisible hands this dial to go up to here and then back down to there, up to here, back down to there. So you could have, for example, a simple square wave coming in, and you can set the square wave up so it is happening. Let's say you've got a 120 BPM clock, and then you have a square wave coming in that is divided by 16. So half of the time there will be nothing coming in because your CV coming in is modulating this thing. And then the other half of the time, the dial will be modulated to be up here somewhere. And then the amount, the strength of your square wave will determine how far around this goes. So you could have this square wave mixing either 0 grains to everything but grains. That would be sort of 100% power, if you like, coming in. Or if your power was, let's say, 40%, then it's probably going to end up somewhere around here, which means that you always have your core music sound coming in, but half of the time you're going to punch in some grains. So that's a really fun combination to play around with. Let's see. Right. Let's talk about pitch, because this can make things sound really cool or really horrible. So if your pitch setting is directly at 12 o'clock, then the grains that are generated from frequency and the size and the shape will be copies of the pitch of the music that's coming in. If you have a sequence that's coming in and it's like 3 notes, C, D, F, then this is going to give you C, D, F as well. But it's going to be in a different order because A, it's random, and B, your time dial, which we haven't talked about yet, will determine how far back in time you're reaching into to create some grains. And that has a link with this button here, which is the quality. And you could also think of this button here as the amount of record time. So there's 4 settings for this button. There's super crystal clear to muddy tape or something, or burnt tape, I can't remember. They degrade in quality, but they increase in time. So what that means is, if you have this top one here, the best quality, it's going to be sounding really crispy, but your time, your ability, say, to reach back in time and grab some snippets of music to fuck around with, that duration of time that you can go back to is pretty short. A couple of seconds, 4 seconds, I think, around about that. So, conversely, if you're on the biggest, longest, dirtiest setting, then your time range here allows you to go much further back in time, 15, 30 seconds even, I can't remember, a while. So why that's relevant is if your pattern that's coming in has, let's say, only 5 notes, then whether or not you're using the shortest or the longest setting here, or anything in between, you're only ever going to get one snippet of those 4 or 5 notes. If your sequence is much longer, then if your setting here is at the shortest, you're only going to get a very recent selection of sound to mess around with. Whereas if this is your chosen setting, you can go much further back in time. And I'm listening to myself talk and I think I'm losing you. So let's just rewind for a second. The time dial here determines at what section in the recent past are you going to be grabbing a grain. So, and I think this is most recent, this is most furthest away. Might be the other way around. I'll come back to you on that. But let's say it's all the way down here, and let's say this is the most recent, and let's say you're on the shortest setting here. Then everything that is generated as a grain is going to be something that you just heard. So if you're if this is set to very recent and very quick and crisp and clean and recent, then a grain that's generated is going to be a sound that you heard a few seconds ago. And conversely, if your time setting is all the way down here, and let's say you've chosen your longest, grainiest, most distant setting down here, then the grain that is picked out, and don't forget these grains are happening relatively quickly, but we're just taking a snapshot. The grain that's picked out is going to be something that you heard a while ago, probably so far away you don't remember hearing it. So that's something that we can work on. This section here, I think, is very linked, and don't worry if you don't get it. What I'm going to say is you can kind of make it easy on yourself, right? Keep it on here, keep it relevant, keep it recent, keep it in the middle, and then get this attenuverter? No, is it? Attenurandomizer. Set your attenurandomizer to either down here or down here and get some funky sounds. So this is just going to inform this. You don't have to, obviously, probably know this, but you don't have to put any CV into here. It's wicked. I love it that you can just modulate it from here. And this gives you 2 different flavors of random. So let's say you choose this most weird random setting down here. This is going to be all over the place, doing some work for you, which is what you want. And if your setting is here, not the top one, then your grains that are produced are going to be random, but they're all going to be relatively recent. So try that, and then I will explore that with actual music, which might make it make more sense. So 12 o'clock, all the way random, quite frequent, but random. Small grains, ramp down, times 2 clock, square wave with a strength of about 40%. Click this button until this light goes white. Okay, we've covered a lot, and there's one thing that I want to talk about before I leave you in peace, which is coming back to the pitch. So we went on a little journey talking about time and quality and tape head lengths and stuff like that. At this point here, everything's in the same pitch. So regardless of how far back in time you go, it will be effectively a copy of the sound that you heard, just from a different time in the past. If you instead send this all the way to the right, it's going to create these grains as per everything here, but it's going to be at a much higher pitch. And if you do it all the way, it's going to be an octave higher, which is useful for performance reasons. Because equally, if you put it all the way down here, it's going to be an octave lower than the sound that was captured. Anything in between is random land, and you might get lucky, you might get unlucky, and it's easier to be unlucky and create something that is inharmonious. So to keep it simple, your settings for performance are either going to be 12 o'clock, fully left, or fully right. Now, if the sound that's coming in is quite high pitch, like a lead or some rings or like something which is quite itchy uppy, then your grains might want to be down here to give you that kind of baseline. So again, we talked about this being here. Let's just say we put it down here. So it's a regular dum 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 grain generation. If the grains that are generated are an octave lower than the music that's coming in, and let's assume you've got things around about here, so you've got dry wet mix going on, you're going to generate a bass line, a rhythmic bass line that doesn't do anything other than deliver a snapshot, which is okay. It is random. It's going to be different every time, but it's going to be in lockstep with the main music that's coming in because it is locked to that octave lower. Equally, if you've got something that's quite low frequency coming in, then you probably guessed it. You want these glittering, high little snapshots, which are musically related, octave higher. There are definitely sweet spots like here or here. Not here. Not here. So you can obviously mess about with this and get it right, but keeping things simple, you're either going 12, fully left, fully right. And if you do that, then you can perform with this. This allows you, if you're quick with the knob turn, you can have a rhythmic bass line, which very quickly turns into a rhythmic kind of sprinkle, if you like. So what you can then do is you're playing with the pitch of either just the copy of the music or lower or higher, and then you're also then getting into performing whether it's on the button or it's usually on the button or it's rarely on the button. And that is probably enough for one day. I hope that was useful. This was done for Nikki from Dots. I will link their YouTube in the description below. Check out their stuff. They're awesome. Thank you for watching. I hope it was useful. If it is, let me know, and I'll try and do something which actually has more than just my stupid voice on it. Cheers.